Hi Year 10, Mrs. Neath again. We're going to carry on with Stave 1 this lesson, so please make sure that you've got your copy of the text, ruler, highlighters, pens, and then your fact book as well. To start off with then, let's see what you can remember from last lesson. Pause the lesson here and then have a go at trying to fill out those key quotes. I'll just give you a couple of minutes and then show you the answers. Quickly self-assess yourself then. I am sure that you have got those all right and you did it from memory rather than looking through your textbooks. When we're studying literature, I do recommend with all the classes that we usually read a text 3 times. Now, Christmas Carol, as you can see on your copy, is only about 35 pages of A4. Because it is a novella, which just means a short story, you should really be able to read it in one sitting, which was Dickens' aim. Obviously, we're not going to be doing that, but do keep reminding yourself of it. Do keep flicking back through it. Do keep rereading the key extracts that we've been doing. I am going to go and try and be a bit slower today because I know that I was whizzing through the first lesson. So it's the same kind of style again. Find this extract in your text and then answer those questions to help you annotate it. Pause the lesson and then we can go through it again. But there's this extract here and then carrying on to here. So again, if you just have a look at those questions for me. Pause it and then we can go through it. Here we go then. It's entirely up to you if you want to use the same quotes as me. If you've got something different, that's fine. Like I say, put it in the chat and then we can go through it there. If there's anything that you think I have missed as well, I welcome being challenged. So feel free to give me constructive criticism. Right, the first quote then. Direct speech is used to introduce Fred. Now this is complete opposite to Dickens introducing Scrooge. Remember that in the lesson that we did earlier on in the week, we talked about how the narrator introduced Scrooge. Direct speech shows that there's no barrier needed between the reader and Fred. Fred's a goodie. It's okay for us to be introduced to him straight away. And immediately, this direct speech also shows Fred's impression of Christmas. He's the opposite of Scrooge. If you look at your fact book, I've done a definition of what foil is. It's just the posh word for saying opposite. But his description here has got a list of characteristics and it just shows that he is the foil of Scrooge. He's not scared of him either. He's wanting to help him change. And he's quite like a child here. He's playful. He's not being mean with his questions. And the use of the word gaily there suggests that he's always doing it in jest. And then you've got Scrooge's response. Humbug, which I'm sure you're aware of anyway if people talk about Christmas Carol. It's a repeated phrase used throughout the whole story. And it shows us Scrooge's change in opinion towards Christmas. Like I say, we know that he's going to be good. We know that he starts liking Christmas at the end of it. But it's these contrasts that are used in Stave 1 and Stave 5, the parallels to show that transformation of his character. So just make sure you've got those down and we'll move on. Here, the quote, "A time for finding yourself a year older but not an hour richer," is linking to greed. What Scrooge thinks is that Christmas prevents him from making money because places are closed and people are spending their cash, their money, on frivolous things. They shouldn't be celebrating Christmas by buying turkeys, by spending it on Christmas decorations, a little bit like what we do now. They should be using it to support the society. And it's showing that cynical nature. Scrooge thinks that money equals happiness, and what Dickens does in this story is to prove that that's not the case. You can be financially rich but emotionally poor. And the fact that Fred uses the word pleaded, he's showing responsibility. He's wanting to change Scrooge's opinion. Another nice quote here, "To open their shut-up hearts freely, to think of people below them as if they were really fellow passengers to the grave." This is showing that Fred believes that Christmas is a time to help people. We should unite, we should be looking after each other, we should be generous. And this is linking to that idea that I've spoke about in lesson 1 about social reform. Fred, I guess you could argue as well, is the voice of Dickens. So Fred's the one that's wanting to help people and to raise awareness. And here, the fact that Bob Cratchit, the clerk who's described, applauded, shows the importance of this speech. Again, it's a little bit like those subliminal messages that writer uses. And the story is a moral. It has got a moral to it, as we'll go through towards the end of the unit. But the main moral message of the book is delivered by Fred. And that's the importance of Christmas. And like I say, it's just a reminder of Dickens' aim there. We should be kind to people at Christmas and throughout the year, and that will help society thrive. So now have a look at Bob Cratchit. Have a look at this extract here. Pause it, answer those questions, and we can go through it. And then carry on, please, having a look at this extract here. Again, using those questions to help guide your annotations. Let's see what we've got then. So, dismal little cell. I think this sort of has the connotations of prison, doesn't it? He's trapped. Scrooge doesn't trust him. But he does work hard. Bob Cratchit is quite a pitiful, sympathetic character. Now, as we know, he represents the poor in this. He shows us the effect of poverty on him, on his family, particularly Tiny Tim. So what Dickens is doing here at the start is creating sympathy for him. The fact that he doesn't even have access to the coal box and he's only got one coal to keep him warm in these bitter, cold winter. It shows that Scrooge is mean, he's greedy, he's harsh. And I think that this is quite a pathetic image, really. The fact that Bob Cratchit is trying to warm himself up over a candle. It does create sympathy. So it's pathetic, but I don't mean that in a negative way. It's showing that he is absolutely desperate. So make sure you've got those notes down and we can carry on. He uses the word sir, look, so he treats him with respect, he's polite to him, despite Scrooge's treatment of him. And here he is remaining patient, he's still being polite whilst Scrooge is complaining and criticising the effect that Christmas is having on his business. It's also showing this hierarchy. Notice that Dickens doesn't use the word Bob, he doesn't use direct speech here, so it's showing that power really. Scrooge is in power, he's allowed to talk, he's rich, he's got a voice. Bob Cratchit is poor, he doesn't have a voice, and again that's echoing the situation in society that Dickens is trying to redeem. And at the end, it's showing a playful and cheerful character. He can't wait to get home to return to his family so he can play blind man's buff, that one where you, like hide and seek, isn't it, when you've got a blindfold over your eyes. And he goes down the ice slides 20 times. So he's a grown up, but Christmas has brought out that playful, childish side of him. And this is showing that despite his poverty, despite him having no money, being poor, he can still be happy. He's emotionally rich. He's got the things that he needs, and that is his family. Now, Jacob Marley is the first ghost that's introduced. And remember that we said at the beginning, he's been dead for 7 years. You could link in the idea of superstition there if you wanted to. Very similar to Blood Brothers with those 7 years gap. But let's have a look at what these quotes here. This whole first paragraph where I've done that red line then is a terrifying description. As I say, in lesson 1, the Gothic genre was becoming a lot more popular in Victorian times. People were interested in the supernatural and they wanted to hear what the message from the afterlife was. So what Dickens has done here to try and help him spread that message of social reform is not just use one ghost, he's used 4 ghosts to help change society's attitudes towards the poor. But this description here is showing the fearful nature of his message. He sounds like something like a Victorian prisoner almost. So think about why Dickens has created him like that. We've got symbolism. Again, if you don't know what that is, the technique definition is on the fact sheet. But it's suggesting that he cared more about money than people. We know that he's very, very similar to Scrooge. And here, this is a nice quote to do those cross-references. If you remember in Scrooge's introduction, it said external heat and cold had little influence on him. We've got that use of the word influence again that's echoed. And I think you could argue that he is actually starting to change sort of 2 or 3 pages into the text. This is a really easy quote to remember. I wear the chain I forged in life. And what Marley's come back here is he's actually being quite a nice friend, and he's coming to give Scrooge the message that if he doesn't change, then he will have the same fate awaiting him when he dies. So he's warning him here. And the fact that he says you have laboured on it since is suggesting that Scrooge's symbolic chain that he will be wearing when he dies is going to be worse than what Marley has. So if you highlight those quotes and make those notes. And again, this example here, who now began to apply this to himself, is becoming more aware of his behaviour. He is starting to understand what will happen to him if he carries on in the way that he is. There's a couple of descriptions there to show that Marley is suffering, And it's showing that he now regrets what he did. Again, foreshadowing Scrooge's change. In Stave 5, he does seem to regret it, and he does change his ways. And then we've got this religious imagery at the end. So the star and the wise men remind us of the nativity. But it's still an example of symbolism, and it's this idea that the light is a good thing. It will lead you to a good life. It will lead you to be a more generous and more better and more rounded person. With the ghosts, the descriptions that are coming up with them, this is a really nice cross-reference to compare it with. So 2 out of the 3 ghosts also have this light with them, suggesting that they are going to help change Scrooge and lead him towards his transformation and his redemption. So please make sure that you've got that one down. To finish off then, let's do another quiz. Now we've started getting the studying of the book underway. Have a look at Stave 1. I've put the events of Stave 1 in a different order, and you just need to put them in the correct chronological order. Try and do it from memory, but if you need to flip back through, if you need to re-watch the film version, if you need to re-listen to the audio version, then do so. But pause it before you start checking your answers, please. And I bet you were all correct. Well done. Right, as I said before, put any questions that you've got in the chat function. If you've got anything that you want me to go over again, then I'm more than happy to put things on the chats as well in the teams that we've got. Okay, thanks for your time, Year 10. Bye.